Thank you. So most of you know I am a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. It's a mouthful. But what I do basically is I use functional labs to assess how an individual's systems are doing. And I'll explain to you more of what I mean by systems in just a little bit. And then I use those to identify any areas where we can support, and then also identify any stressors that may be within the body. I use nutrition and supplements to support the body and just kind of get it operating back in a method that will get it to a state of ease. I have a diagram that I've done many, many times, and funny enough, I thought tonight, I'm not going to do it, but I'm just going to kind of run through it real quick and then do something else that I have. I just wanted to kind of change it up for those of you that have attended many to at least a few of my presentations. So this just shows here that there's the brain and here's the body. We call this the mind-body connection, and these two are always communicating through blood, cells, and nerves. And when they're always communicating, we call that a state of ease. So this is 100% function within these systems. And when it's not at a state of ease, we develop something called symptoms. And this is when we typically go see the doctor. And when we have symptoms, we become a state of dis-ease and malfunction. And this is what I'm looking at always. Why? What is the root cause? What created these symptoms? So it's oftentimes that a client will come to me and say, I have this, this, and this. I've been diagnosed with this and diagnosed with that. And I'll say, okay, that's important, but it's not important. And the reason why is because I'm going to focus more on your systems. And those systems that I focus on, I use the acronym HIDDEN. The H is for hormone, the I is for immune, the two D's are for digestion and detoxification, the E is for environment, and the N is for neurotransmitters. So those are the areas that I really focus on, and using those functional labs. Hi, Dana, thanks for coming. But I also thought I'd start out with something a little bit new today. It's called a wellness meter. And I really thought this was fun the first time I saw this. So this is 100% function. This is 0 function. Everybody know what that would be probably? Zero function would be probably death, right? So, but 100% function, this is always what we're aiming for. But typically, we hang out around here. So that's just to once again show you that there's a lot that occurred, right, when we're hanging around here. This is typically when we start doing a little self-medicating. We may not think it's self-medicating, but it's that I need that coffee. It's 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I need a coffee, or I need a sugar. I need something just to pick me up and give me that boost. And that's fine if that's all the body needs and it works optimally at that point. But if it starts going a little bit further this way, this is when you become more symptomatic, and that sugar and that coffee isn't going to work for you anymore. You're going to find yourself at the doctor's. Now, the doctors are there specifically to help you when you've reached this point. So from all the way here at 100% function to here is when you're going to see the doctors. And as you know, they work with you with medications. That's what they focus on, is medicine. And they continue to try with medicine, and if not, the next thing is surgery. I want you to be here. This is what we're really trying to focus on. And that's what I'm trying to share with you as well, is what can you do to support your body so that you're here, so your immune system's feeling really strong and vibrant, and you're feeling really good. Now, there's definitely times that you may feel a little bit here occasionally, but if you can get back here pretty quickly, then that tells me that your body's rebounding fairly well. So I just thought I'd share that with you. I thought that was kind of a good little example of, you know, once again, it may not be just yesterday of something I did, it's many yesterdays of what we have done.
You can't be 100.
We can be 100. I'm all about 100, Deanna. Absolutely.
Some people can feel, or at least 95.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting is even me myself, I had to be tested when I went through the certification. And of course, I'm fine. You don't need to test me. Can I just get on my family? And they tested me, and I was here. And I thought, really? I've been feeling so great. And it wasn't until I really started to support my systems that I started to feel here. I haven't had a sickness since last August. Nothing. Not even sniffles. Really, no flu. My daughter's had the flu. My son has been well for, I don't know, I think a year and a half. I think he had the flu one day last February. was the first time he's had anything in quite some time. He's much better than I am. I still dabble in my vices, but I can have a little bit of a thumb over him. My daughter, she's a little bit of a different story. She's in middle school, and she definitely experiments as she feels free to do. So that's.
When you say that, like you haven't been sick, do you ever feel a little symptomatic, and then you feel your body kind of get back to normal pretty quickly?
Yeah, I feel run down, and I know what to do to nip it so that I don't go any further. And it's not anything, secretive or anything like that. It's a lot of lemon and water and garlic. Really, those are really quite simple. And I know to feed myself, make sure I'm getting those extra vegetables. But I don't do anything super over the top by any means. So, but I do say that energetically, I feel pretty much around here. I feel good. I feel really good. So that's always my goal, is for people to start feeling here. Even here would be ideal. Deanna, I like that. We're going big. We're going 100%. No, that's really good. But today, I really wanted to focus on the digestive system. And the digestive system is something that we all are very much aware of, but it's actually one of the top complaints that people go into doctors' offices with. That and fatigue, they go in with digestive issues. It's estimated about 100 million Americans have digestive problems. Now, those are direct digestive problems: bloating, gas, constipation, irregular bowel movements, that type of thing. But please note, too, that the digestive system can be central to your entire health. It is thought in the functional medicine world that the digestive system is the root of all chronic illness. Autism, allergies, ADHD, asthma, arthritis, and those are just the A's, right? That's just where I started there. So, if you think of general health, it is really central through to the digestive tract, and I'll share a little bit more with you why that is. Also, the top 5 medications that are sold on the market, 2 of the 5 are for digestive support. So no one's alone here. We all are sharing this common issue. The digestive system, well, first of all, this is my efforts today. Does everybody know what that is? Yeah, that's Lynn's reason to keep her day job. That's what that is. But I really wanted everyone to at least get a good look at how this particular system works, because it starts here and it's continuous all the way out through our rectum. And that's essential to know, because I think often we hear it's here. This is where if I'm having issues here, then I should be feeling it here. Well, it's all interrelated and all connected. Now, this particular system is used to absorb and assimilate all the nutrients that we take in. So we eat our foods, we hopefully chew them real well. That's the first process in the digestive system. And then we swallow them, and in our stomach we have stomach acid that helps break down the food. And then the food begins to travel down through the small intestine, and at which point it's then broken down with digestive enzymes. And hopefully it's broken down really well, because the intention then is for it to be sent to the liver. And then the liver is going to get rid of all the toxins, and all the wastes that should travel right out our rectum or out our bladder, urinary tract, as we know. So that's the process of the digestive system. But it's also important to know, too, that in here there's basically, how does the digestive system keep us healthy, and how does it make us ill? There's 4 different areas to focus on. One of them is, in this particular area, we have about 500 different species of microbes that live in there. It's its own little microsystem. It's like a chemical factory. And in there, its purpose is to regulate your hormones, to absorb and assimilate nutrients, decide where the vitamins and the minerals go, and it's to get rid of waste, to detoxify the body. Of those 500 species, I found this fascinating, only 10% of them are our own DNA. That's not a little do-do-do-do, right? So 10% of that is ours, and the rest isn't even ours. But our aim is that 90% of that has to be really good bacteria. That bacteria is there to make sure that the digestive enzymes are available so that it can break down that food. and so that the vitamins and minerals can be absorbed into the bloodstream. Now, so it's a little microcosm in there that's referred to as our gut flora, is typically what is referred to. You've heard of probiotics, I'm sure you have, and that's the intention there is to try to replenish that particular microsystem. So that's the first component of the digestive system, and what helps us stay well or can also create illness, especially if this is severely compromised. The other piece of the digestive system is this long continuous tube is made of a mucosal lining. It's like a cheesecloth. It's real thin. And its intention is to keep all the toxins out and to keep all the good stuff in. Now, if it's working optimally, then your system's working optimally and your immune system's great. Now remember, immune system means to protect and defend and to fight off whatever may be coming through. So the digestive system is often considered to have about 70% about 70% of your immune system, because it's so powerful. It's what we take in, not 24 hours a day because we do sleep at some point, but we're eating a lot through that time. And so its intention is, once again, to just take in those foods and those nutrients and keep all the bad stuff out. However, and I'll go into a lot of the reasons why your digestive system can fail, this particular cheesecloth can get holes poked in it. And when those holes get poked, it's called leaky gut. It's also called intestinal hyperpermeability, aka leaky gut, is a simple way of saying it. And when you have leaky gut, what happens to those toxins? It's not being sent into the liver for the liver to recycle, it's being distributed into the bloodstream. So that is often the reason why the digestive system is considered the source of all chronic illness. Now, if you know of anyone that suffers from an autoimmune disease, it is undeniable, they're stating, that it was an autoimmune disease developed as a result of a leaky gut, typically around 5-10 years prior to. And it does make sense when you think of the toxicity that has been leaking into the bloodstream, into the joints, however it may be. Everybody's an individual. Symptoms manifest on an individual basis and differently within every individual. Do you have any questions for me so far?
How do you get holes in here?
So, let me just finish with these two things if I can, and then I'll go into what causes all those things. The enteric nervous system is the other thing that resides right here. Remember last week I was talking about fight or flight and rest and digest? Well, those are two components of the autonomic nervous system. The third component is the enteric nervous system, and I know it sounds like a mouthful, but it hosts more neurotransmitters in this area than your brain does. So, those individuals that have issues with anxiety, my first thought is digestion. We need to look at what can we do to really address the digestive tract, because much of that is being manufactured and managed here by the enteric nervous system, which is always in communication with the brain, going back with the brain-body, constantly in communication. And then I shared with you the fourth component, which was the liver, right? That's its additional duty to get rid of that waste. So, sorry, Julie, getting back to how do you end up with holes in there? What did you do, or what happened over time to create either a leaky gut or some type of that created issues with the body being able to produce stomach acid or to be able to produce digestive enzymes, which would help break down that food. So there's quite a few reasons why that can be. First of all, is nutritional deficiencies. I think you've heard me say over and over, our soil is depleted. It's not what it used to be. You can't even get B12 from the soil anymore unless you pull a carrot directly out of the ground, shake off the dirt, and maybe take a crunch. I think you might be able to get it at a true organic farm. But generally speaking, you can't get that anymore. Everything's triple washed. By the time it gets to the store, the soil has, like I said, has been modified and changed over time. So that's one reason why we have nutritional deficiencies. Another reason is just our lifestyle choices. We live in a chronic time of stress and toxicity, and we may be depleted in vitamins A, C, E, and zinc. And all of those are immune modulating. Those really boost our immune system. So we become depleted in those areas. And of course, you know, I love connecting the dots. That's always I love that as a kid, and I'm realizing now as an adult I get to play it again. But zinc is also largely linked, any zinc deficiency is also linked with a decrease in digestive enzymes. So if you're low in zinc, you're going to produce less digestive enzymes, and it also can affect your thyroid function. So that's just the power of zinc, and I only mentioned really three big issues: immune, thyroid, and digestive enzymes. So that's the first key. The other key is if you're continuing to consume a food, and I've talked a little bit about food sensitivities. Those are the foods that we take in day after day, and we don't realize that it's creating some type of chronic low-grade inflammation. And so what occurs is that we eat that food regularly because we think it makes us feel good, even though we're kind of feeling around here on the wellness meter. And but it doesn't give us any direct relationship. We don't get sick immediately after eating it, so we think we're okay with it. Well, over time, that eventually can poke holes into that lining, because what happens is there's a whole set of defenders in this system that are ready to fight back. They're called antibodies. And we have them throughout our body, actually, but we have something called secretory IgA, which is about 70%. It's the largest immunoglobulin in our body that is there to protect and defend the digestive system. And over time, that chronic stress that I talked about last week and that I've talked with you about can deplete that secretory IgA as well. So it becomes a battleground down here as opposed to a protected fort. So that's how the holes can get poked, per se. Food sensitivities, just eating chronic, food constantly that your body doesn't agree with can create that. Also medications. Chronic use of Advil, acid blockers are real big for that. Also by taking in acid blockers, you're depleting your digestive enzymes, so that's also kind of throwing up the white flag down here. One thing about acid blockers, a lot of people will take those because they think that they produce too much stomach acid. That's that indigestion, that acid reflux, and those types of issues. There's actually a lot of evidence right now that's saying it's quite the opposite. That was kind of Big Pharma's move towards making a lot of money and trying to indicate to you that you actually have too much stomach acid. The truth is it's very possible you don't have enough stomach acid. As we age, we become depleted in stomach acid. It's a simple supplement that you can go and acquire. I actually have a test that you can do at home, and I didn't bring it with me, and I don't remember the contents of it because I haven't tried that one yet. But it's definitely something that I can share if anybody's interested, just to see if you think you have low stomach acid.
Because somebody who takes, I'm sorry to cut you off. If you know somebody who's taking those pills already, though, and they're taking them all the time,
yes.
Can you then give them a test? How can you essentially convince them to not take them? Because I know somebody who's on them, and if she doesn't take them, she literally goes into a hiccup, and it doesn't stop. Well, there's this bourbon hiccup combo. It's gnarly.
A couple things then. First of all, it could be that she's depleted in stomach acid, but there's another risk factor there too, and I do test for these things, and those are infections and pathogens, which was going to be my next issue as to what can break down the digestive tract. H. pylori is a bacteria that is very prevalent, and it can create major acid reflux. And giving stomach acid will actually perpetuate the growth of H. pylori as opposed to reduce it. But that might be something she should look into. At least I have a pre-screen in my office, so it just means she goes through a checklist and says, 10 out of the 12 fit me, or none of these fit me. And so I usually put my clients through that as well, just to make sure to screen out, especially if they've given me any indication that they have those types of symptoms. But otherwise, stomach acid is the other. And it's a crapshoot. With my clients, I won't put them on any hydrochloric acid until I know for sure that they don't fall into the risk category for H. pylori. And some clients come back and say, "Wow, I feel great. You put me on that acid. And everything's moving so smoothly now." And this kind of goes back to last week when I was talking about weight gain as well. When your digestive system isn't moving well, you've got inflammation down here. Like I said, a battleground, you've got swelling going on everywhere because it's trying to protect itself. That's why the body swells. So, those parasites, infections, pathogens are another reason why they can break down the digestive tract. Did I answer your question, Julie? Okay. And any other questions, Stu?
You may be getting to this, but is it, can you repair it?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I wouldn't tell you about this stuff. Okay, there you go, Christy. No, I'm all about repair. That's right. Let's do what we can to repair it. So, let's see here. I just want to make sure that I touched on pretty much every reason why there can be a breakdown in the system. Now, something else. If you have leaky gut, so you have little holes poked there, how does that spread, basically, right? So I shared with you that toxins are released into the bloodstream. Well, if so, we have cells in our body called cytokines, and these are little messengers, and they basically yell fire. And so the whole body just takes over. And if the joints respond, then maybe you start to express in the form of arthritis. If the brain responds, maybe your body manifests into a neurological symptom. So, and those cytokines can spread, they spread inflammation everywhere. And inflammation is swelling, of course, but it's also the source of all type, of chronic illness. So, digestive system first. This is really where the core is, the root cause, potentially. But, we've got those, inflammation is ultimately what's creating the symptoms.
I can't remember if you had told me, is there a test you can take and just say you have leaky gut or you don't?
Yes, there is. I have an intestinal permeability test that I can do on my clients. I haven't been doing it because I now know other clues to look for in other tests. So unless I have someone come in saying, do them all on me, otherwise I try to just say, okay, what test can we really use, and I can gather the most information. But absolutely, there is a test specific to that.
And when you're saying tests, are you doing needle stuff, or are you doing pressure point stuff? Like, what are your tests?
Yeah, my tests are, I have saliva tests, I have stool tests, I have blood tests.
Okay.
I think I covered everything there. Saliva, yeah, I don't think.
And you send them off?
Urine, thank you. I do urine as well.
Like you
Yeah,
send them to a
so
lab, is that what it is?
yeah, I have the kits. I
Yeah.
give them to you. You do them at home.
Right.
Unless it's a blood draw, then you can go to the local clinic here. They're
Right.
familiar with my particular kit, and then they send it out. The results come to me, and then I contact you, and we sit and we go over those results.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, those are the tests that I do. So, shall we talk about allergies? Is everybody ready to talk about allergies? Okay. Is that any more questions here? No? Okay. Am I explaining it clearly? Okay. So, allergies. When we think of allergies, what do you think of? Anybody?
Cats.
Cats. Okay.
Ragweed, hay fever,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
the pollen.
Pollen.
Histamines, yeah, pollen, okay.
Rashes.
Yeah, okay.
Runny nose.
What's that?
Runny nose.
Runny nose, okay. And a lot of those, actually, what everybody just mentioned, if I heard correctly, was inhalant allergies, basically, the things that we inhale and we get those reactions. That has been completely, entirely linked to here, once again, but I'll explain to you in just a minute how that is. Food allergies is another one.
Mhm.
So just to keep that in mind, we have the food sensitivities, but then we also know that we have true allergies as well. Those are the individuals that eat something and immediately respond. So our immune system, as I said, as I tried to explain, is there to protect and defend, right? So that's what immunity is. That's what immune system is there for. It is like a kettle, and it can only be full so far. So we need to treat our system and always looking at our total stress load, as I was talking to you about last week. How do we reduce the total stress load? So allergies come from 3 different areas. The inflammation that I was talking to you about, leaky gut, and those messengers start spreading the word, and then there's inflammation. This particular area, all the way into your ears, if you know of anyone that has chronic sinus infections, largely linked to here. This is one continuous tube. The only thing that you may question was, well, gravity, right? So maybe this is top and this is bottom, but still, these are fluids that are all shared. So I think that that's often why, and I've had a few clients. I've had one client with chronic asthma, serious chronic asthma. She was on medications, was experiencing some blackout attacks, and I said, we've really got to focus on the digestive system as much as we possibly can. And we did focus immensely on the digestive tract. She is now off all medications. She's not had any more blackout episodes. And that's from down here, focusing on here. And you know, the parent was a little like, really, you think so? And I mean, receptive. I'll try anything because the drugs aren't working. And then this parent went to a specialist, and the specialist said, you know what we're really working on now these days is working on the digestive system. That's what the asthma specialist said. So she had some reinforcement at that point. So, but this is really essential. Anyone who has lots of phlegm, lots of sinus issues related to the digestive tract, and something called yeast overgrowth, which often occurs as a result of taking a lot of medications, a lot of antibiotics over time, and that can happen. Women are familiar with you know, having yeast infections vaginally, but yeast can also occur here as well. So to keep in mind, so the next time you're sniffling, you'll be like, wow, could it be from here? It's just something, you know, just to draw that connection, right? So, so that's really key. It talked to you about the kettle and how we have to keep that kettle kind of, you know, at a lower point. Stu, my husband's a prime example of this. He was up to his wit's end with hay fever, springtime. And this is years ago, actually, prior to my certification, but I had always read health. I said, you know, you should try giving up dairy. I keep reading about dairy and the link between hay fever. And he said, sure, I'm in, because he was just so over it. He was willing to try anything. We lived in Canada at the time. And so he gave it up, and it's golf season in the spring, right? So he wants to get out there and golf. He doesn't want to have hay fever. Gave up his dairy, went golfing. You're not going to believe this. I didn't sneeze. I didn't have itchy red eyes the whole time. I thought, great. Ice cream truck came through the neighborhood. He's a kid at heart. And sure enough, he went out to the ice cream truck, along with some other kids that knew that Stu would be going out to the ice cream truck, and had his ice cream. Came in, enjoyed that ice cream, and sneezed, and had itchy red eyes immediately afterwards. He was like, I'm a devout, I believe. So, and I'm confident now that has to do with the kettle, you know, and really keeping that down, because there's other immune things that we're subjected to every day. Our kids, they come home from school, right, and they carry so many different viruses and bacteria, and yeah, my son's hands are more dirty than they're clean, you know, so we really have to look at what can we do and what can we identify within our own individual bodies to reduce that immune load. The other key thing here, though, too, and I really find this fascinating, is our thymus, which is located behind our breastbone, releases white blood cells. And they release these cells in an effort to protect and defend and fight any type of potential infection that's entering into the body. There's two that we really focus on, especially when it comes to allergies. And they are the TH1 and TH2, basically. Last week, I talked to you a lot about how the body is always constantly trying to strive to be in balance, and our body is actually made that way. We make estrogen, we also make progesterone to keep that in balance. We make dopamine, the gas on the pedal, we make serotonin, the brakes. Okay, so the body is always, it's created, it's manufactured that way to be in balance. Of course, those things can get out of balance, so what do we do to get them back in? Well, the TH1 and the TH2 cells are the same way. They have to be in balance. There's some nicknames for these. TH1 cells are called killer cells. TH2 are the antibodies. Now, TH1 means a virus just entered into my body, and the TH1, they are the first line of defense. They've run out, their guns a-blazing, they're good to go. TH2 is kind of standing back, and they've now created a defense for whenever that same virus comes into the body. Now, it can also happen with foods. These particular cells can also put themselves on alert. You can get killer cells that can start attacking, and these antibodies that can start defending. I don't want to get too technical, but at the same time, I want you to understand that these two need to be in balance. If not, what you have is those antibodies that keep making armies going like this. And now you have someone who has multiple food sensitivities, is responding to everything that they breathe in or that they consume. This is largely linked to your asthma, allergies, ADHD. You need to get these two in balance, back in balance, so that the body can be at a state of ease and relax. So I shared with you last week that those individuals that come into me with food sensitivities, that's kind of a marker when you're talking about, an intestinal permeability test. If I see someone has 30 plus food sensitivities, I already know what's going on there. I suspect two things, leaky gut, potentially, or we've got TH1, TH2 skewing. And there's things you can do immediately to get those back in balance. And that was the other piece of that one client that I shared with you that had asthma. As I also worked, I said, let's go for both. We focused right on here, and then I balanced that TH1, TH2 right away. Got to keep those in line.
How frequently should you get tested for food allergy? Doesn't your system change?
It does. It changes often. I think once is fine. I really do. Mm-hmm. And then doing that, really introduce it hard after some time, and you've tried some repair work. Really introducing that food and seeing how your body responds to it. I shared last week there's an elimination diet that you can do as well. So instead of just taking a blood test, I have worked with several clients now who's just said I prefer to just cut out foods. And so they cut out the 5 top ones, and sometimes if they're really ambitious, I add a couple more for them. And they cut those out for 3 weeks, and then I encourage them to introduce one at a time. And it's funny, I've had a few clients that say, really, I got to cut out all those? And then 3 weeks later, I don't want to introduce them. I feel really good right now. So, and I get that. You want to feel good, right? But, 3 weeks later, go ahead, introduce that first food and really introduce it. Like I shared with you before, on Monday and Tuesday, if that's when you start doing it, I want you to eat it twice in both those days, 2 or 3 times in those days, and then for 3 days following, don't. So getting back to your question, I don't know. I'm not all about, okay, get another blood test. I think you just kind of retry those foods. Unless you think, gosh, I've tried all the 5 main ones and I'm still feeling funky, then you might be an outlier. And there might be some foods that aren't commonly responded to that your body might be responding to, and a blood test would show you. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so now on food allergies, they're saying a lot of times these days, and they're starting to study it now finally in Western medicine, where if you have an allergy, you feed your body small doses of that allergy so that you build an immunity to it so you can reintroduce it to your body full time. Where does that fit within your program of what you're thinking?
Yeah, mine's a different protocol entirely. Okay. My protocol is, and I'm familiar with that as well, is that you remove all the things that are irritating the body. You identify what systems need support. You support them at the same time that you remove those irritants. And then at 3 months, you reintroduce those foods. Because there has to be some repair work. Unless your food sensitivity comes back and says dairy. Dairy's the only thing. And that's very possible with individuals that we have 1 or 2. But it's when we have multiples that, no, you've got other issues going on there. This isn't just reintroducing slowly at a time. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay.
If someone just has 1 or 2, are the odds pretty low that they have leaky gut?
I would say yes, but there's nothing foolproof out there for sure. And it's important to understand that even if you don't have digestive issues, it doesn't mean that you don't have an infection, or that you don't have leaky gut, or that you don't have. If you have brain fog or you have neurological issues, then I would focus on the digestive system. I really would. And there's a lot of peer-reviewed science-based journals that are supporting that. I actually, I'm in the draft process, but I wrote an ebook on seizures, nutrition for seizures. And I footnoted as many publications as I could find that really supports that thought process, that the digestive system, it's all related. Everything's communicating always. It's no different if it's a neurological disorder. So, it's quite powerful. But the digestive system is really central. So I love the adage, listen to your gut. It's really pertinent.
So one thing that I have a hard time with is my children and the food that they're exposed to at school, birthday parties, and that could be a whole other night's topic, I know, but at some point could you talk about tips on how to work around that stuff? And
I will do my best. I will. And I've talked with a lot of parents about this, and these are issues that we struggle with, and there's been some real strong advocacy, I know, at the elementary school at getting rid of cupcakes for birthday parties and things like that. I really commend. But yeah, some things I do at schools, I provide a bag of stickers and little things because all of the teachers love to give a treat. That's the reward system. There's such an association we have between food and how we perceive it. And even me, I still salivate when I'm around a platter of pepperoni and cheese because I grew up in an Italian family. That's what was sitting out on the table. I don't eat either of those items anymore. But it's a response that I get, or I know my husband feels like it's a treat. It's daddy's, association with his children if he does this, and it used to make me really angry, and now I just say, yeah, that's you and your dad, that's that issue. So I do try to keep that separate. And then school is, just another issue. But like I said, the bag of stickers, those are usually things. I mean, when Koa was on the ketogenic diet, the teacher was kind enough to contact me every time there was a birthday party, and I would send Koa with his own version of a cupcake. But that's not very realistic for all of us. So, yeah, there's lots of issues. I'd really like to do some more on that, too. Like, what can we do to support? Really give them a great breakfast. Give them a great dinner. Give them the best meal that you think they're going to eat at lunch that's healthy. And then just talk to them about their decisions. I think that's really key. I love it. In the morning I say to the kids, okay, what are you going to have for protein? Or Cole will say, well, it's a protein, Mom. So, and I'm like, you're right. Okay. So, I can't really argue with that as much. But, I also have shared with you, I'm not perfect. I don't aim for perfection. I did when he was sick, but not now. We're on the maintenance diet. We're on the 80-20, Aim for 80, aim for 100%, but yeah, let's have some french fries, some potato chips, dark chocolate meditation. We talked about that one last week. Yeah, some dark chocolate meditation. So, yeah.
And then real quickly,
Yeah.
what is it called? The mucus?
Mucosal lining? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always hear, because I have some friends that are super healthy and they talk about like strengthening the wall of the, how do you do that? Just through nutrition?
Yeah, so let's talk about how do you fix, how do you repair, how do you do these things? So first of all, of course, if you're taking chronic medications and it's something that your doctor's recommended, I would encourage you to stay on that. But to maybe talk with your doctor, what's my long-term plan? Okay, because this isn't something that I can work with long-term. So that might be something to really consider. But medications, I would encourage you always to stay. You're working with a primary physician. Nutrition, it's, clean up your diet as much as you can. Try to eat pure foods, nothing in a box or in a frozen bag. Now I say that and I pulled out some organic frozen edamame today out of a bag. So, just use your discretion. I'm just saying, but in theory, nothing with lots of stuff in it. So that's really key. The other thing is flood the gut with probiotics. And I'm also a big fan of encouraging digestive enzymes. I really am, just to help break down that food additionally and support the liver. Because it just really, it moves everything along. It encourages that flow. And we want the body to go, oh, that's right, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Instead of being stuck here and constipated. When you're constipated, you've got toxins that are just hanging out in your gut. Hate to say it, but foul gas is putrefaction. That's what that is. So, you want to make sure that things are just moving through. It's really key. So probiotics, really
So
important.
the lining just gets thicker and fills the holes in it?
Eventually, if you start removing the food sensitivities and the things that are irritating that gut lining, then yes, it will heal. But if there's something there that's still poking it, it's not going to work. I heard a great analogy. What was it? You can't go to the doctor with a thumbtack in your foot and say, and then walk out just taking some anti-inflammatories, right? You still got a thumbtack in your foot. So you've got to get that out. So it's really the same type of thought process. You've got to remove whatever's irritating that digestive tract. and then give it the supports it needs. Now there's a couple of supplements that you can also take to promote the healing of this lining, and those are glutamine, which is an amino acid. The only thing, very cautious with glutamine, especially if you do suffer from, or not suffer, I don't like that word at all, experience any anxiety. Glutamine converts to glutamate, which is an excitatory. So really work with someone on this, but I'm just telling you that this is one supplement, and zinc. Zinc helps in the repair process as well. Mm-hmm.
How much zinc do you because you can take too much, right? I mean, it's,
yeah,
I don't take it, it makes me nauseous sometimes if I take too much.
it does.
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about that? Okay. I hate to give away dosage.
That's fine.
And you know, I have to say, all my clients that I work with individually, I have them sign a waiver stating that they're working with a primary care physician. So I just want to be real careful when I'm talking about supplements. I don't want to, say this is what you should be taking in this many.
But when you say zinc, is it like in vitamin form or foods that are high in zinc?
Yes, but you know what? Excellent point. You just reminded me of that. Pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds are really high in zinc. So grab a handful of those if that's something that you want to. And I have a lot of lists of foods like that because I'm all about medicinal. I have one client who would prefer to go the food route with everything. And so I've upped her on pumpkin seeds, and she's like, great, I love those. So
Do they lose their value when they're roasted? Do you eat them raw and whole? Because I know some things lose their
You're right.
nutritional value. when
I'd
they're
say
roasted.
anytime anything's cooked,
If you use it.
it's going to lose it. Sorry, it's probably not the answer you wanted. I prefer yeah, you know what? They're nice raw in a salad.
That's how I eat them all
I
the
was
time.
going to say,
Love
yeah,
it.
yeah, so that's good. So do you have a question?
What are your thoughts on removing mucus as well as identifying and removal of parasites?
Uh-huh.
Or, I heard you talk about the mucus in the throat, and
Yeah.
I've heard things about having diets that are eating things that remove mucus from your body. So I was curious what you
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because I always, I used to have a lot of congestion, and I drank a lot of hot water and lemon in the morning. And that actually helps cut any additional congestion, morning congestion. I think part of that is just being really dry here. I think my body's trying to compensate for that and moist. So I'm not sure exactly what you're thinking, Chris, on the breaking down the mucus. Do you have some
I
other
don't know.
ideas?
I don't know. I've heard things like eating radishes and as
I can
far
see
as
that.
like low mucosoid foods that there's, I guess, gut mucus. There's other mucuses in your body
Mhm.
that are they good? Are they needing to be removed?
Mhm.
And then the same thing with, I've heard there's also parasites that can be in your body, whether you identify them or not, or how you identify those, and how you would approach removal of those things.
Yes. So, so parasites, bacteria, yeast overgrowth. Those are three areas that I will focus on with an individual, and it's a stool test. Did I say stool earlier when I was? Okay, good. So that's one other area. I don't do it. The individual does that. Thank goodness, right? But yeah. So, and that I'll usually use, especially if it's contributing to symptoms. Now, remember, I don't focus on symptoms, right? But if someone comes in and says, I'm just bellying over. I had a client that literally was like, I am so sick. Every time I would see her publicly, she was pale white, her stomach was killing her, and the doctors don't know what's going on with her. And so I asked her a few questions. I had her fill out a couple of pre-screens with me. And I said, I really think you should rule out infection. And a lot of my clients, I will say, I'd like you to rule out infection. Because you can address inflammation all day long, but if you have infection in the body, it's never going to go away. It's not going to reduce until you address that. So with that, it came back positive. She had a parasite and a bacteria. And she had the choice. I gave her the choice. You can go to a doctor with these particular results, and they will honor those results. They definitely, it's a stool antigen results, which are highly reliable. And she chose that route. Now, I've had other clients that have opted to go a supplement protocol, and I actually have those protocols in my office. And so we work specifically with those protocols. But I will tell you something here. If you find, for some reason, let's say you're in another country and you can't reach me for whatever reason, you really need to approach the parasite first, the bacteria second, and the yeast third, because the bacteria and the yeast are opportunistic. So they're there because the parasite was there first. So if you've got yeast overgrowth and you're just constantly, I can't get rid of this yeast, it's possible that you have a parasite there that has housed itself first, and it's created the environment for that yeast to reside. Everything's possible. It's not absolute. So, but I'm all about, let's rule it out. Let's rule it out as much as possible. So with the mucus, by addressing this, Chris, the mucus will reduce. It will. As long as we've identified all the things that are irritating it. But probiotics, as I just told you, my big disclaimer that I don't want to give any recommendations, this is something you can go and buy on your own, multi-strain, multiple strains.
Billions.
And billions. You want billions in there, okay? So, and fermented foods are another great option. There's a great company out there, Bubba's, something like that, sold at Vaughn's. Now, I have not found their sauerkraut, but it's also sold at the health food store. But I've been told very clearly it's sold at Vaughn's, and they make pickles as well. So sauerkraut and pickles, and it doesn't have all the extra junk in there. And that's great, especially with my kids' sausage and sauerkraut. I can sell them on sauerkraut if they're getting a chicken sausage or something like that. That's gluten-free, So yeah, did I answer your question, Chris? Okay. But yeah, the power foods, fascinating. Just anything you can consume to help cut down that mucus would be great. Dairy is a major culprit. It's 50 inflammatory proteins. You can't deny it. It's just the way dairy is. So.
And it doesn't cook out. That's what I found. It's like the casein and things that doesn't cook out.
Yeah.
So just have a question about flora.
Yeah.
And so the 3 months when we remove the foods that are irritating the body, and then we're focusing on repair. And one of the things that I'd like to know is, when the flora is replaced, and how do we measure that? Is that just by time, and 3 months is general kind of rule of thumb?
It is by time.
Okay.
And it is also, I believe that you can stay on a probiotic for life. I really do. I don't think it has to be a 3-month window. And that's pretty much across the board. I have not seen anything contrary saying you cannot take a probiotic for life. Do take it away from food, so take it before bed. That's really key. You don't want it to conflict with what the body's trying to do in the digestive tract. No, it's something, and also, we have 500 different species in here, as I mentioned, and the one that I recommend has 7 species. So you're like, well, that's not really covering the 500. So really rotate your probiotics. You can take that one for a couple months and then try different, add a different one in it. It's okay to rotate and add different species in there.
Would you say the same about enzymes, that it's okay to keep taking them?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely, and helping to break down food. Yeah. I wanted to say this one thing about vaccinations. I just read about this and I find it fascinating, is that there's a theory now that the reason why our kids are developing so much, asthma, allergies, ADHD, autism, is because we are suppressing those killer cells. We're not giving them a reason to go out and fight, because if they're exposed to anything major like measles or chicken pox or anything, they don't get to go the full boom.
Or just dirt.
Or just dirt, yeah. So
all the antibacterial stuff, just dirt.
Yes.
Good old fashioned,
put it in your mouth, yeah. And there is talk about that as well. Kenneth Bach is a really great doctor. He's a medical doctor back east, and he wrote a book treating the new childhood illnesses, the 4 A's, and those are the ones I just mentioned to you. And so he reports in there quite heavily that this is really what we're kind of seeing, why we're seeing such an insurgence of why kids, and of course vaccinations is only one piece. Like I said, we live in a time where we're constantly involved in toxins and immune, resistant issues, and we really need to have really boost that immune system. So
I have a quick
Keep that
question
strong.
going back to parasites. I was getting a massage from this girl, and she started talking about she did a parasite cleanse, and she said she just felt so much better after. And I said, well, where did you get the parasite cleanse? And she said, I think the health food store. So do you just take pills, or how do you do a parasite cleanse?
Well, there's a few things. You can do a parasite, okay, first of all, cut out sugar. You got to cut out sugar. They feed on sugar. Yeast feeds on sugar. Bacteria feeds on sugar. Okay, so sugar has to be cut out. Vinegar as well, because vinegar turns into sugar. Vinegar. So those are two things you can do to just cut out immediately if you suspect any type of infection.
Oh, because they'll die?
Oh, yes, the abstinence. There's a theory, on with my son. 8 months he was on a ketogenic diet, not an ounce of sugar, nothing. And we're suspicious that me and another medical doctor who has been one of my mentors, that it's very possible Koa could have had an infection. He had a lot of symptoms early on, itchy rectum, things like that. I'm going to be real open here. So it's possible, though, by just stopping the sugar and just feeding the body with fats, that we just eliminated it, because eventually he did have a stool test and it came back negative. So those are two options. But, the pill cleanse, I don't know what's in those supplements, so I don't really know. I'm not sure, but I have pretty straightforward protocols that were recommended, and they're pretty unanimous, too. Yeah, amongst other doctors. I have about several doctors that I use as my mentors, and about 3 of them I can contact at any time if I have questions.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that I didn't know if it was coincidence she felt great, or I don't even know if she knew she had.
Sure.
Just how do you know if you have parasites? You really just kind of assume.
Well, unless you're highly symptomatic, you wouldn't know. I had a woman who, serious anxiety, and highly chemically sensitive as well to anything. And so I knew I highly suspect she had a detoxification issue, because she was highly, perfume smells, anything like that, really over the top. And she said, but I have no digestive issues, never have. I'm regular, I'm consistent, all these things, because I ask all these questions. And we did a test on her, because I was just wholly, anxiety. I was really suspicious of this area. I did a urine test on her, organic acid test, and it came back. She had extreme amounts of candida yeast and clostridia, which is a bacteria. She's like, you're kidding me. She had no idea. So you can be very asymptomatic in this area, but she was carrying symptoms in other areas. So, yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. I really encourage everyone, and I love it that you're here, because I want to share this information so much, is that it doesn't have to be here, it doesn't have to be, the symptom doesn't have to be here for it to be caused here. The body is just so all the systems are very interdependent and interrelated. So, any other questions?
I have a question. I was reading today about a certain disease, and it talked so much about DNA and how the chromosomes and stuff. So if somebody already has the precursor because it's in their DNA, then, they've never had the chance to have a digestive, they're born with it. So that exasperates it, or,
I'm gonna stop. I just realized